James and Sarah had known each other since they were 4 years old. 16 years later. It was the 25th of June, 2017. Sarah and James were sitting in the town square eating lunch during their free period. "It's too hot," moaned Sarah. "You could do with some thinner material," James retorted. "Some shorter shorts," Sarah quipped. "Exactly," said James. "My mum bought me some short shorts the other day," said Sarah in a slightly braggadocious tone. "So short, she didn't buy you any," James exclaimed. James laughed to himself maniacally while Sarah sat stone-faced, unable to chew her sandwich. "You better be careful. An accusation like that could get you into trouble," snapped Sarah. "Oh, I'm sure it could," said James, still recovering from his own joke. "No, seriously. That's a fucking deal-breaker." "Short shorts? Are you fucking kidding me?" Sarah fumed. Leaving her sandwich on the bench, Sarah walked back to school, leaving James all alone with more sandwiches than friends. James finished both his sandwich and Sarah's before processing the infliction. James then headed back to class. On his way, he glimpsed a new shop he had not seen before. "Cheap shore shorts," the storefront read. James entered. He browsed the various short shorts on offer. These shorts were short, all in different waist sizes, colours and materials, but all remarkably short. James then came across a glass box containing "the world's shortest short shorts." The shorts were microscopic. Some would say they had no physical dimensions, that they were merely a figment of the collective imagination. Regardless of their perceived non-existence or proof of corporeality, James insisted to himself that he purchased these shorts, despite the employees of cheap short shorts telling him they would cost £10,000. He imagined this would prove to Sarah that short shorts like those he joked about earlier did exist. James, feigning acceptance of defeat, as it became quite clear he could not afford them with pocket money alone, began to leave the store. Suddenly, James bolted back into the store, knocking over a dozen or so of the Chinese women who worked there. Their ethnicity or gender does not have any relevance to the narrative, but is merely a detail, a brushstroke on the canvas, giving you a mental image of multiple small, elderly Chinese women being bowled over like skittles. This is an objective account of what happened. James smashed the glass container with his bare hands. Having bowled over half of the shop floor, James, a timid boy by nature, felt a surge of adrenaline that propelled him through the heist like an agent of violence, like it wasn't him but some malevolent alter ego. James bailed, shorts in hand. He didn't wait until he got back to school or home to try them on. James darted into a nearby shaded alley out of the beating sun's unwavering punishment. Here, he slipped off his three-quarter-length cargos and squeezed into the short shorts. James felt the strain, with his scrotum condensed into a mangled mess and his penis tucked away between his legs. James felt more alive than ever before. Emerging from the alley, he was spotted by the store employees who were talking to a policeman. The same policeman who would later be struck off for the very same crime James committed, as it happens. His name was Smedley Rogers, an officer with a mean streak and notorious among the townsfolk for his failed working relationship cum romance with an animatronic model brought in by the state as an experimental mode of cracking down on youth vandalism. Rogers was partnered with the bot, Officer Bardo, for 6 weeks one summer. Rogers was in love instantly. His summer of unrequited love led to vicious taunting by the local kids. They would shout abuse at him based on rumours they had heard at school about Rogers being caught reprogramming Bardo and putting a wig and dress on her while off duty. Rogers protested to the kids that it was part of an undercover sting operation and that the dildo he had attached to the bot's pelvis was also part of the character Bardo. Anyway, the thing with Officer Rogers being struck off for stealing and forcing himself into the short shorts happened a few months after Bardo had been deprogrammed for good and retired by the Force. Some said this was what led to the downward spiral of Officer Rogers. Others say he was already on his way by the time the robot came into his life. Either way, prison is no place for a cop. James went to make a getaway, but he could no longer move his legs. He collapsed to the floor, his bottom half no longer functioning as his brain was willing it to. James was put in an ambulance, with the medical personnel unsure as to what his problem was. To them, he was a young man unable to walk, with his half-exposed genitals crushed into a dice. They were unable to see what the cause of his anguish was. They put a blanket over him and rushed him to the hospital. James remained in hospital for several weeks. He eventually got enough oxygen to the brain that he regained consciousness. By the time he could form a sentence, James had become incoherent. His voice did not register to human ears. Only dogs could understand his cries for help for someone to remove his penis from his taint. Information a dog cannot process nor act upon in any meaningful way. When James was strong enough and back at his parents' house, he was able to cut himself out of the microscopic short shorts. After weeks of sitting down on the toilet like a little girly girl, James was once again a free man. Permanently brain damaged and physically worse for wear, James was alive. He patched things up with Sarah and went on to graduate from school in some subjects that this writer didn't build into his backstory. Sarah also graduated in something or other and went on to buy the Short Shorts property in a hostile takeover, firing all of the employees who were now in their 80s and replaced them with androids that merely resembled 80-year-old Chinese women. Business. That's what Sarah must have graduated in.